Good morning, everyone. Good Monday morning to you. I'm Prophet Norma, and I'm here with you today for Prayer Before the Bell Plus. All right, so go ahead and share the broadcast. Let your friends and family know that Prayer Before the Bell Plus is on today. We're going to be continuing our journey of talking about persevering in difficult times, and so I'm just going to give you just a moment to go and just share the broadcast with your friends. Make sure you have your pen and your pencil as usual, your journal, and your Bible so that you can follow along with me as I read and so that you can jot down notes that you can go back and study later. All right. Last week, when we were together the last time, we talked about Job, and we know that we can all learn a lesson from Job because he was tested in just about every area. And we know that Job was a rich man. He had lots of cattle, lots of land, had a big family, had riches, and he lost it all. The Lord allowed Satan to test Job, and he lost everything. But we know that at the end of that passage, that story about Job, that he recovered all. He was restored. The Lord restored him all that he lost. And so today we're going to continue on our journey of talking about persevering in difficult times. And today we're going to talk about David today. David is one of those people in the Bible that we talk about a lot. And for some of you who don't know David, you'll know him by the end of this broadcast today. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you know we're going to be reading from 1 Samuel 16, and we're going to start at verse 1 and go to about verse 14 or 15. And so you can go ahead and prepare your Bible and get it ready so that when we get ready to go and read that passage of scripture, you'll already be there. All right. And make sure you jot it down in your journal so you can go back and study it again, study it out, read it again and again and again. All right. David, he had several brothers, but David was, he was out in the field tending to the sheep and all of those things. He's out there. We know as we read the story about David, he was fighting bears and everything else, and any other kind of animal that was out there out in the field. While he was out there, he was a shepherd boy. And so, but he was also very, very tough. He was a very tenacious, very strong young man. And excuse me. And so we know that as David grew up, he was a young boy, and we know the story about David and Goliath and how he took Goliath down and all of that. But in order to do all of that, he had to do his field duty. He was in the field fighting bears, which prepared him to be able to take out a Goliath. You think about us in our time fighting a bear. What would that be like? You would have to just have some supernatural strength to be able to do that, with your bare hand or with a slingshot. But David did it, and he knew he could when when everybody else was afraid of him and of the Philistines. And this, he said, "You uncircumcised Philistine," and he was like, "But I'll fight you. I don't care." That's, in a nutshell, that's what he's saying. I don't care who you are. I'll fight you. And so he had been out in the field doing all those things, fighting large animals, and so it was preparation for him to be able to take Goliath out. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into the reading this morning. I want you to go ahead, if you haven't made it there already, or if you just joined us on the broadcast. I'm getting ready to read 1 Samuel 16, and I'm going to read from verse 1 down to, let's see, 13. All right, starting with verse 1, 16:1. Now the Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons." And Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me." But the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint me, you shall anoint for me the one I name to you." So Samuel did what the Lord said and went to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, Do you come peaceably? And he said, Peaceably, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. So it was when they came that he looked at Eliab and said, Surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said to Samuel, Do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outer appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, neither has the Lord chosen this one. Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, Neither has the Lord chosen this one. Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, The Lord has not chosen these. And Samuel said, and Samuel said to Jesse, Are all the young men here? Talking about, is that all of them? Do you have any more sons? Then he said, There remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, Send and bring him, for we will not sit down till he comes. So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, with blue eyes, and good looking. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is the one. Then Samuel took the horn of the oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel arose and went to Ramah. All right. And here we see it. He said that he brought all of his sons. We saw it. He brought all of his sons. He didn't want David to come, but he said, Hey, wait a minute, do you have any more sons? And he says, Yes, I have one son who's out in the field tending to the sheep. He said, Bring him in. We're not going to leave. We're not going to sit down until we see him. And so when they brought David in and brought him before him, he said, This is the one. Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him, because he said, This is the one. He is the one that the Lord appointed. And so Samuel was chosen. And sometimes, and even in that, and David was chosen. And it's in times like that, we know that even though he was overlooked, the Lord had already had a plan for him. And David was just out there tending to the field, doing what he always did, you know. And many of us would say, Oh, I was just being overlooked. But David was just doing his daily doing his work as he'd always done, out in the field, tending to the sheep, which he enjoyed. Uh, but we know, as we've just read, that David was anointed by King Samuel, but had to wait many years before he actually became king. During this time, he faced threats from King Saul and lived as a fugitive. David's patience and faith in God timing were pivotal in his eventual rise to the throne. And we know that David, of course, eventually became king. And David's story is such a powerful story of not only perseverance, not only of tenacity, being a great warrior, all of those things. But David having to wait all of those years uh, before he became king shows great perseverance and patience. And so I'm gonna go over here that of study, and I want you to make sure that you jot it down and go back and read it as well, about David and his life, and him from being the David the shepherd boy, and reading all the way up to when David becomes king, and that covers several chapters in scripture. So make sure you go back and read the whole thing in its entirety. I wanted to just talk about David's perseverance, and also just talk to you about persevering in difficult times. I know a lot of times, parents, and I'll say this to the parents as well. Sometimes your kids will go to school, and they will decide, Hey, I want to play football, or I want to play basketball. And then they become a part of these sports, and then decide, you know what, I really don't want to do this. This is just too hard. Sometimes you need to allow them to keep going. Sometimes we can we want to, stop them from having to go through in, go, I won't even say a difficult time, just things that they feel like are too hard for them. Oh, I tried it, I really don't want to do it, but making them do it anyway, because if you don't teach them how to persevere now, guess what? When they get to be teenagers, they're not going to want to fight for anything. When they get to be adults, they're not going to want to fight for anything. But you have to teach them that every time something is hard doesn't mean you need to quit. It's an opportunity for you to begin to increase your stamina. It's an opportunity to learn how to persevere even when it's something that you don't like, but you chose it. But and not allowing them to just quit every time they decide that they don't like anything, because excuse me, because at the end of the day, when you continue to do that, oh well, he wanted to do this and now he doesn't want to do it anymore, you don't have to do it. What you're teaching them is to quit. You're teaching them how to be quitters, and you don't want that, because that doesn't just stay in as they're small. This just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then when they become adults, they become adults who quit everything. Whether it be jobs, whether it be relationships, whether it be friendships, quit no marriages, whatever the case may be. They've already built a track record of quitting. And so it just doesn't say, okay, now you're a teenager. Now all of a sudden you're not going to be a quitter anymore. You're not going to have a desire to quit everything that you start. No, it just keeps going until you become an adult. And we all know that adulthood is the longest stint of your life, because once you turn 18, the rest of it is adult. You're an adult. And so those are the things that you want to teach them in terms of quitting. Let them, don't always be there to rescue them from things that are difficult. Let them work through it. Teach them how to work through it. Teach them how to work through difficult times. I've worked with many a teenager, and the first thing when things get hard, they want to quit. Well, this is Miss Norman. This is too hard. I don't want to do this. Well, what is it about it that makes it hard? Well, I don't understand it. Well, let's sit down and talk about it. Let me help you understand it, because if you get a better understanding, then you can do better. And so you sit down, talk to them, show them, okay, show me what you're doing. That's what I did. Show me what you're doing, how you're doing this. Okay, well, let me show you how it's done. Let me show you how it's done. And I'll go through, whether it's math problems, go through, show them how to do it, and just show them different ways to arrive at the same answer. And so after showing them, after a while, because sometimes it's just a matter of showing them how to do something. you know they just may not have a full understanding, and just may need more information on how to get something done. And also, when I just talked about sports, you know you start on a softball team, you start on a soccer team, so on and so forth, and it's like, oh my gosh, we have to exercise and we have to do all this running. Well, that is part of being on a soccer team. You're going to run. And so what I want to might add to parents, is when your children say, hey, I want to try out for this sport, or I want to do this or that sport, I sit down, talk to them, and talk to them about what that looks like. Have them go research it. You don't have to do it. If you have small children, then you can talk to them about it. But if you have like a teenager, or it's someone who's able to do research and understand, have them go look at it and research it and see what it takes to participate in that particular sport, so that they know that there's no surprises. Because a lot of times children are excited about when they see sports and they see teams win. It's all about the win for them. And then when they get on this, like, oh wow, I didn't know it took all of this, because you're looking at other people play, and you're looking at them make it look easy, and all of a sudden, oh, I want to do that. And then when you get behind it, you realize that it requires a lot of work. Not only does it require to be in sports require a lot of work, it requires a lot of your time. And guess what? Homework doesn't go away, and all of those things. You still have to do homework. You still have to do your chores at home and practice. And so now you have a whole lot going on. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. But parents, even before they get started, teach them how to count the cost before. The Bible talks about that. Teach them how to count the cost before they start anything. Let them go read about it. How much practice does it take? Even talk to coaches at school and say, if what does it take to be a part of this team? How many hours a week do we have to practice? Just to do your due diligence before they start, just go sign up for something and quit. let them go get do some research on it to find out, so that we're not raising or aiding in our children becoming quitters, because that does not stop. Like I said, doesn't stop when they're young. It continues into their adulthood, and they start quitting all sorts of things. All right. Well, I want to go in and talk about why it's important. Why perseverance is important. Why do we need to persevere anyway? Let's think about, persevering to achieve goals. Most of us and most people set goals for their lives. I remember when I was in high school, even before high school, I was very young, and I made up my mind, and I knew that I was going to college. And so guess what? I had to do the work, I had to push, I had to persevere through all of those years. Now I thought about this as a kid. I'm going to college. I want to go to college. That's something I want to do. And so I pushed from an early age to see to it that I was able to do that. And so when I was in high school, I filled out all of the paperwork, did everything I needed to do, kept up good grades in order to get scholarships so that I could go to college. And because of I persevered, and because of the hard work that I put in all of those years, I was able to get a full ride academic scholarship that paid for my entire college, 4 years of college. I didn't have to pay a penny out of my pocket because my scholarship paid for my schooling and other grants and all of that, but no money out of my pocket for schooling. 100% paid in full. When I finished college, I had no debt. And so, but I persevered. I did the work. I put in the studying and all of that, all of those years, to see to it that I had a grade point average that would yield me a scholarship. And so, when thinking about why persevering is important, it's important so that we can achieve our goals, whatever your goal is. That just happened to be one of my goals. And so when we think about excuse me, achieving our goals, we think about overcoming obstacles. Perseverance helps individuals overcome challenges and obstacles that arise while pursuing their goals. It ensures that setbacks do not derail your progress. All right, so you got to keep pushing. Perseverance is important for personal growth and development. Example, let's think about building resilience. Perseverance fosters resilience by teaching us to bounce back from failures and keep moving. Again, as I said before, don't stop. Just don't get into something and quit. Just keep going, keep pushing through, keep pushing through, keep pushing through. It sometimes it's going to be hard, and sometimes it's going to be more than you want to give to something, but you keep pushing through. Okay, he was out with the sheep, ended up as king. And so you have to keep pushing. That may not be your trek in life, but to come from a shepherd boy to king, yours may be what mine was. When I grow up, I want to go to college. What are you going to do to be able to make that happen? What things have you set in place? What things have you said, okay, I know I have to do this thing, this, that, and the other in order to achieve that goal. So you want to make sure that's happening. uh Next, perseverance is important for problem solving. Okay, when faced with obstacles, perseverance encourages individuals to explore multiple solutions and approaches, often leading to creative and effective problem solving. Sometimes as you sit down and problem solve, that's why it's good to bounce things off of someone else's ears, so that you don't get stuck in just what you have. And when you get an opportunity to listen to what other people have to say about a particular thing, and you can say, oh, okay, wow, I never thought about that. And how often do we do that? When you're trying to problem solve, you'll say, okay, I just need your help with this. Can we talk about this? What this particular thing, what do you think about this? And somebody will say something, and say, what, I never thought about that. That's a pretty good idea. And so you always want to make sure that you're continuing to push your kids, push them to go beyond their limits. Don't allow them to keep starting things and stopping. Let them keep going and push them to do their best in everything that they put their hands to do, because it's easy. I'm thinking about those people. God bless them. I think about football players when in the summertime they're out, they have to practice in all that heat. And I'm like, that's not something I could do. But for somebody, that is their goal. Their goal is to become the best football player there is. Their goal is to make it to the pros. And guess what? In order to do that, you're gonna have to push, you're gonna have to persevere, you're gonna have to give up your time, all of those things in order to make that happen, to be the best of the best. I mean, you think about the likes of Michael Jordan. They talked about how many hours this man practiced from morning to night. Practice, 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 practice. And what did it do? It landed him a career in the NBA. And hey, he's listed among the greats in basketball. But he worked hard. And that's what I want everybody to understand. You have to work hard. You have to push. You have to press yourself beyond your limits. You don't know what you can do unless you push yourself past the limits that you've set for yourself. So always strive to push past your limits, and to go beyond your last victory. Our victories are just, we can look back on all of our victories and say, you know what, and run your resume of victories and say, you know what, I have a resume full of victories, but I don't want to stop here. I want to keep going. I want to keep pushing. And that's what I want you to do. I want you guys to keep pushing. School is getting ready to start. And so in about a week or so, and some students have already started, schools have already started. But when you go back to school this year, be determined to push yourself beyond your limits. If you're one of those, you know what, and say, you know what, English is not my best subject. Math is not my best subject. Science is not my best subject. Guess what? Push yourself beyond your limits. Think differently about those subjects. I know it's when you've had year after year of of no success, great success in those areas. Math, I hated it, but I pushed and pushed and pushed and to impress myself to pass my classes. And that's what you have to do. And sometimes it requires a tutor. Sometimes it just requires somebody else's assistant. Sometimes a teacher, the way a teacher teaches, you just can't get it. But if you have a tutor, someone who's like, okay, I can show you. Let me just go from beginning to end, from A to Z on this math problem and show you how to do it. And sometimes it just takes somebody doing it over and over and showing you over and over and over again. And eventually you get the idea, because you have to get the concept of what it takes to solve a problem. And once you get that concept in your mind, you can solve any problem, but you have to be willing to do the work. And that's the one thing I want you to get. I want you to leave this broadcast today saying, you know what, this school year, last year may not have been a good school year for me in terms of my grades, but I determined this time around, that I'm going to do the very best that I can do. I'm going to use all of my resources, and I'm going to push myself beyond my limits. If I don't like a particular subject, I'm not going to start my year off saying, oh my gosh, I got to take another math class. No, tell yourself, I have to take another math class, but I'm going to win. And keep telling yourself that, and not just tell yourself that. Do the work that it's going to take to see to it that what you spoke about, that I'm going to do it, comes to pass. Even if it takes a tutor, even if it takes long hours of study, even if it takes looking at YouTube videos on how to do a particular type of math, whatever it takes, do what it takes to be the best and to push through. And so that because I'm telling you, once you push through and you get it and you learn it, you'll look back and you'll say, why didn't I do it sooner? And you'll be so proud of yourself that you'll be looking for that next thing to conquer. So go forth and and just push through this school year, and every other year after that you have to complete. Just persevere, push through, and become the best you can be. All right, be like David. He was out in the field tending to his own sheep. He was field duty. He was using all of that for him to take out Goliath, and then eventually, he became king. So continue to fight, continue to push, and conquer whatever it is that has been conquering you. Take the opportunity to conquer it and become the best you can be. Thank you for joining me today for Prayer Before the Bell Plus. I look forward to seeing you again on next Monday. The broadcast airs every Monday at 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. If you're not able to look at it on when it airs in the morning, make sure you go back and take a look at it in the evening, or actually any day of the week. Go back and take a look at it and let me know what you think of the broadcast. And again, if you want to leave things that you want me to talk about on the show, you can send it in my inbox or you can put it there in the comments. God bless you, and I'll see you next time here for Prayer Before the Bell Plus, where we're fighting for the souls of the next generation.